I recently came across an article in social media discussion about how the Navy is going to allow cell phone access to the recruits during boot camp. Now, there was a lot of disagreement around this and if it was a sign that the Navy, like much of our society, is getting soft. People like myself who went through boot camp and had to write letters in order to communicate with our family, if we did at all, during those 10 weeks or so, we often thought that it was not only unnecessary to have cell phones, but maybe harmful. Now, it can be hard to understand the importance of rituals in our modern society that's so heavily focused on individual self identification without restrictions. But for thousands of years, young men had rites of passage. These rites of passage included long and grueling rituals where they were taken from their mothers by the men of the group for days and weeks on end. Different cultures did it differently, but there was almost always a ritual designed to differentiate young men from their former lives as boys. Whereas women had biological changes that were unavoidable, which transformed them from young girls to women capable of creating new life and the vast responsibilities that come with that ability, young men had no such obvious change. So rituals had to be created. And for many of us, that ritual is military boot camp. It separates us from our former selves, literally, and puts us in a situation where we are tested and need to pull from the strength within ourselves and amongst our peers, our new peer group in this case. It purposely separates us from our former selves, which includes our former social networks. Now, in the article that explained the change, it's not that recruits would be able to have their cell phones all day, every day. It was that they would have access to them during specific times where they otherwise would need to use payphones. The reasoning from the Navy was to allow recruits the ability to stay connected with their family and their digital selves as a recruitment tool. Now, this doesn't sound like a difficult thing for the boot camp staff to do, and it doesn't seem like a big change. But I think it will have greater impact than we think because we don't recognize the value of these rituals. It's not just the ability to handle the administration of this process by the staff that's important. It's also the psychological effect that it'll have on the recruits. If you design a rite of passage that purposefully demarcates a separation from childhood to adulthood, but doesn't sever the connection within the environment that created your childhood, you risk not moving into adulthood. The lines start to become blurred. Now, the Navy, like other branches except for one, is having trouble recruiting young people, and policies like this aim at making it easier for young people and their families to make that choice and go through this process. But young people, especially young men, in a society that has come very close to eliminating difficult times, are not looking for what's easiest. They may not be able to articulate it as they are young and don't yet know themselves, but they're looking for what's difficult. They deeply seek out challenges that will reveal to themselves who they are. Making these processes easier is not going to increase recruitment. Dropping these accommodations and announcing that they will make it more difficult and more selective is what I think will drive more people to join. Nobody wants to go through a ritual that makes them no different than anybody else. Nobody wants a boot camp that will spit them out without chewing them up first. Now, the one branch not having recruitment problems, I think, is evidence of this dynamic. The Marine Corps, with its reputation for sucking on purpose, has no problem getting recruits the way the other branches do. Young people don't want or need easier. They need to get some.